Hello, Dovad students. My name is Aaron Raskadden, and I am an adjunct instructor here at Weber State University. I specialize in kind of digital technology in Adobe Creative Suite, and I will be walking you through preparing Illustrator files for laser cutting. So I prepared this cheat sheet right here. It's a module page that may be in the Canvas section of one of your courses. But anyways, this breaks down everything I'll be talking about, and it goes even further in detail. So make sure to go through this. It's quite extensive and it will really answer all of your questions to get you set up. So the first thing we need to do here is we need to get an Adobe Creative Cloud license. And we do that through Weber State University and we request a license. So I link that information here. Make sure to take care of that right away because it does take 24 hours to sync. And once that goes through, you can download Adobe Illustrator, and we use Adobe Illustrator here in the art department to laser cut files. And the reason we use Adobe Illustrator is because Illustrator is a vector-based program, meaning that it utilizes SVGs, which are scalable vector graphics, which can be infinitely scaled. So think about Photoshop being pixels. This is quite the opposite. So this is using vectors, imagery that can be scaled and shrunk down, so it doesn't have any pixels attached to it. It's all just line work. So that's the reason we're using that. And then a few things about Illustrator and templates is that I have provided a few templates for you linked on this page. So these are up here and we will be using those to develop our designs. And now that we have that basic housekeeping out of the way, let's dig into our Illustrator file and really understand what our expectations are for preparing that for the laser cutting machine. So there are two types of files that I have linked. One is for the laser cutter upstairs in the ACT lab, which is 306. And then also we have one that is for the shop and it's just larger. So the bed sizes are different, so it's really important that we are using the correct one. So I have this mock file I set up here. So this is our template right here. And I'm going to just give you a rundown quickly on the workspace. If you haven't already, please go ahead and watch the Illustrator video that precedes this. It'll give you more information on really what's going on here. So we have our tools listed to the left, and then to the right, we have our layers components. And within every template that I made, we have the black cut layer and the red etch layer. And so when we're creating these designs, we want to make sure that these layers are selected. And I just simply do that by clicking, and you'll see a faint, almost navy blue populate. And I just click that, and then I can go about selecting whichever tools I wish. All right, a few other basics. So we have our menu bar up top, our tools to the left, and layers to the right. And if I want to make sure that my workspace is set up just like how I have it here, I would simply go to Window, Workspace, and click Essentials. And let's say our workspace, this happens quite often, we bump a key, something's not working right, and our workspace alters. We'll simply just go up to Window, Workspace, and Reset Essentials, and that'll put everything back to normal. You can even see there I had some things that were off, and that happens, that is totally normal. Moving forward, some other things I'd like to show you is that I have the ruler displayed. And the ruler is so important when we're laser cutting because it gives us a good idea of the size of our bed, actually the exact size of our bed. So this file is set up to the measurements of that laser cutting bed. So this would be the material that you insert into the bed. It doesn't need to populate this whole entire swath of space, but typically if you're trying to cut a lot of things, you might use the whole entire bed. So I have that ruler on, and I simply do that by doing Command R for Mac or Control R for PC. And you can see that ruler toggles on and off. And then additionally, I added a grid, and that grid just helps me keep in scale in mind as I'm moving forward with my designs, because as we're working digitally, we can zoom in quite a bit and get lost a sense of scale. So I have that listed. And by just getting that back, if that happens to be hiding for you, is you just go up to View, and then you can go down to Grid, and that it would say Show Grid. I have my grid now, so it says Hide Grid. Okay, so we have kind of the essential tour done. There's a few other things I want to take care of just to make sure that we're all dialed in to prepare our files. So we have the layers right here. And again, like I said, just make sure those are selected before we move forward. with whatever you're drawing. And then each layer will need to make sure that line work has the appropriate color associated to it. So for example, black is cut, and you can see I have all of my artwork here that's black. And if I go up to my little eyeball here and I toggle that on and off, you can see that I assigned all of those black items to that layer. And the same goes for red if I toggle that on and off with the eyeball. Okay, so the red, that'll end up etching, and the black will end up cutting. And so what we'll do is that we'll put this file as a .svg, which means scalable vector graphic I mentioned earlier, and we'll import that into our laser cutting software. So this video will only cover the preparation of the Illustrator file. So when it comes to prepping your actual cutting, the day of going into the ACT lab, make sure to consult a technician. They're there, they're very friendly, they're there to help you and assist. But these tips will help make sure that you make the process a little smoother for them. So once we have everything set up, kind of with this template open, what I can do is I can start to play around with the tools a bit. So I mentioned a few things in the show notes listed below. It'll give you further details. But if you want to play around, you can try with this rectangle tool, make a square or a rectangle. You can also do text. But one thing that is super important to take away from this video is that as we are working on shapes, we want to make sure that our fill is set to transparent. And I simply do that by making sure my fill here is just set to that little transparent bar down below. And that's really important because with laser cutting, we don't really have a need for the fill. Unless we're etching, you could fill the whole entire surface with red, for example. But be very intentional with that. Make sure that we're not making a mistake and accidentally setting this to white. So that's a mistake that would be pretty easy to make. So just be careful that we're not doing that moving forward. So I'm just going to undo that there. So that is an example. We also have our pen tool here, okay? And this is creating what's called a path. And if I enclose that here, that would literally cut out this whole entire shape. You notice how it's transparent? That's exactly how we want that to run. And in addition, if I went with the curved line, that would do something similar. Okay, so that is an example of how to do that. And then with text, I'm just going to populate a few things. So I'll do A for my name, Aaron. And right here, this would unfortunately not be able to be cut because it is solid. So what I would do is I can click here where it says outline the text. And then if I go up to my properties, I can change my stroke to 0.25 and turn off that fill and make it transparent. And so this will give me the ability to cut out that shape. And if I wanted to simply change that to etch, what I would do is I would click right here on the outline, double click and open up my properties and change that to red. And I just max out the red on the top right, bring it up to the surface here. And super important, keep in mind that all of your RGBs need to match. So your RGBs for the color red, they should be consistent throughout your whole file. Same with the blacks as well. So be very vigilant during that process because it'll make it easy when you import it into Lightburn. That's a software we use to coordinate the laser cutting. It'll just make it very smooth. And whoever's assisting you in the lab, a technician, it'll make their life a little easier. So let's make sure to do that. And then here you can see I don't have this on the correct layer. So if that happens, I can just simply hit it and do Command X or Control X, and then move it to my proper layer and then do Command V. And I can just drag it back. And if you want to paste in place, just hit Shift while you're doing the Shift Command V, and that will paste it there. Okay, so we are really in the home stretch here. That's more or less the basics. Make sure to utilize this template. And then a few other caveats I want to add is that the line thickness actually does not matter. We do not want to mess with it too much and start editing settings and adding additional outlines because that will complicate the process and create double lines. And so a very important thing to do that I would highly recommend, almost I would make this a requirement for yourself, is Command Y or Control Y depending on your system. And then I would zoom in and make sure that you have nice crisp lines, that there's no double lines, that the whole shape is, if it's a closed shape that you want completely cut out, just go ahead and double check that by using Command Y or Control Y. and that will just knock out any colors and thicknesses in your line weights and make it very easy for you as a user to study how that file was set up. Okay, so that really in a nutshell is the big picture when it comes to setting up a file. But a few things I want to make really clear here is that in the show notes, I have absolutely every single tool laid out with an explanation in addition to more resources and explanations for you if you wish. And then just before we wrap up and explore exporting files, is if you are working on a file and you're ready to get that cut, please make sure that you are having the assistance of a lab technician. Our students do need that. So those lab technicians are highly trained in using this software since the laser machine is a fire risk. So we need to have that staff present. So make sure you're doing that and then just come with your file ready. And so their goal is to really facilitate that. So just come with your file prepared and watch this tutorial and you should be totally fine. And to export your file so the lab technician can help you, we'll want to go up to File, Save, okay, or Save As, and then make sure that we're saving this Adobe Illustrator file to our computer or in a safe space. So that's always the first thing we need to do. And that's for you, that's not for the lab, because you may want to go back and edit this file. And the next thing we'll want to do is go to File, Save As, okay, save on your computer. And then we'll want to make sure that we're doing the SVG, which is scalable vector graphic. And then save that to your desktop. And I like to leave in the room 306 ACT lab so I know which bed I'm printing or laser cutting on. And I'll just put my name on there. Okay, so that is a very quick summary, about 10-minute summary on preparing files for laser cutting, but just see how creative you can get here. I'm putting an etching within a piece that's cut out. You can create keychains, little architectural models. Really, the possibilities are endless. So make sure to have fun and push your creativity here. Go ahead and review those show notes, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.